As Texans prepare to cast early votes in the midterm, new statewide polling has Republicans stretching their lead into double digits. Is this election already in the bag for the GOP, or can Democrats somehow rally? On the border, a policy reversal by President Joe Biden as a fresh flood of Venezuelan immigrants move north toward the Rio Grande. And in the battle for Harris County Judge, challenger Alex Mueller's anti-crime back to basics message appears to be gaining traction. I'm Greg Groogan, and welcome to What's Your Point, where our panelists call it like they see it. Let's greet them. Starting us off, well-known businessman and columnist Bill King. Next up, former Houston City Council member Sue Lovell. In the 3 spot, veteran conservative commentator Gary Polland. Batting cleanup, longtime super neighborhood leader Tomorrow Bell. And closing us out, Charles Blaine, founder of Urban Reform. Let's begin. On this, the eve of early voting in the Lone Star State, some truly head-snapping numbers lead our broadcast. The well-regarded UT Texas Tribune poll is reporting Republicans on the statewide ballot, led by Governor Greg Abbott, have built hefty double-digit margins over their Democratic opponents with just 15 days until the midterm. Check it out. Abbott up on Beto O'Rourke by 11 points. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick ahead of Democrat Mike Collier by 15. And controversial Attorney General Ken Paxton now leading Rochelle Garza by 14 points. It's pretty much the same story further down the ballot, a projected outcome with a common thread. That is, Republicans will almost certainly retain control. Panel, if this survey is anywhere close to accurate, it's fair to say Texas Republicans have engineered a crushing win in the messaging war. I'm going to start with you, Gary Polland. This has got to be great news.
Yeah, I think it is, and I think that there are some issues on the poll. It may not be that big a margin. I mean, Ken Paxton winning by 15 points. I have a little hard time believing that, but I think they're all going to win. I think that the flow for the Democrats has ended. I think they peaked in August. I think that their issue, and what's interesting about this poll, you look at the 11 issues they deal with, and they rated Abbott versus Beto. Abbott won 10 of those issues by double digits. The only one he lost was the climate. So even the underlying issues show that the Democrats are failing, and it's a midterm. So I expect it's going to be a good night for Republicans. However, Greg, important to remember, polls don't determine elections, voters do. People need to turn out and vote.
Sue Lovell, it is great to have you back now with your bionic knee. Hey, look, if they flew you into Austin right now, what advice would you give the Democrats?
Well, get organized, get your messaging better, get more people on the ground, listen to what people are saying and what the issues really are, and, talk to people about those issues. I think statewide, you're correct, but I think in Harris County, it may be that all the statewide don't take Harris County. I think it'll be interesting to see what the margins are going to be here in those races. But clearly, we've got to get better organized. Statewide races are tough, but I think they need to do a better job of organizing and messaging.
All right, Bill King, it seems to me as if the Democrats put a lot of their chips on the abortion issue, and it may have faded some. Is that your read?
It is. The abortion issue historically has not moved the needle in an election. And that's because there's a relatively small number of people on each side that is like the most important issue for them. And those people already knew which side they were going to vote for anyway. So it doesn't really change many people's opinion. I thought this might be different this time because we've never had a situation where we didn't have Roe before, and there was a lot of outrage about that. But it just seems like the wind's come out of that sail here in the last 30 days to me, with some of the other issues coming to the forefront. I really think I'm going to suggest to the Democratic Party that they just disband in Texas, because if you can't beat Ken Paxton, then, you really just need to fold up your tent and go home.
All right, Tomorrow Bell, you have your finger firmly on the pulse of grassroots voters. What are they talking about?
Unfortunately, in the grassroots, so many people are just apathetic about this election, and I'm asking them to kill that, because if you don't vote, don't complain. You need to get out there and vote. And it's not about the party that you're in, because not all, let me get this clear. Not all Democrats are demons, and not all Republicans are racist. So don't think this is an altruistic. I'm damn glad the straight ticket gone. I am no one. I ain't vote that way. But you need to look at what's important in your community, and that is what you need to care about and get out there and take action about. Because whoever you select to lead you, whether you like them or not, that's who's going to be sitting there for the next 4 years. So you need to get out and get engaged in what is going on.
All right, Charles Blaine, another example that Harris County is not the Lone Star State, and that the vast majority of folks outside of the major metropolitan areas are voting Republican.
Yeah, very much so. And I think Democrats hope that they can focus on the major metro areas to kind of, on the statewide sense, usher them in, or at least usher them closer than they've seen in the past. But it's just not the case. I mean, Republicans still outnumber Democrats in the state, and the Democrats' messages that they have been using and the policies that they've been supporting are not appealing to even moderate Republicans or independents, as we're seeing them start to break away. And, you know, there's a recent podcast that President Obama was asked, like, why Democrats are doing so bad across the nation right now. And he's like, they need to focus on issues that actually matter to people instead of chasing all these issues of the day. And I think he's exactly right. And they have not learned that lesson, and it doesn't seem like they're going to learn it between now and November 8th.
All right, Gary Polland, I asked this question of Sue Lovell. If they flew you into Austin for a star chamber with Abbott, Patrick, Paxton, what would your advice be in terms of avoiding any, self-inflicted injury?
Focus like a laser on the key issues, which is crime, the economy, and open borders. Those are the issues. Keep talking about them. Don't get distracted.
All right, Bill, any thoughts on this? Is there any way the Democrats can turn this around in, 2 weeks?
No. I mean, apparently the Democratic Party cannot read polls. I mean, what Gary said is exactly right. You look at every issue that they're promoting right now, there are people that a majority of Texans don't care about or don't care passionate enough about, and they won't talk about the things that matter. They had plenty of opportunities. I mean, look, cost of college is going through the roof. Everybody I talk to is worried about that. Why wouldn't the Democrats take up that issue? Where were they on the grid? They were taking money from the same people that the Republicans were taking the money from. I'm serious. I don't know why we even have a Democratic Party in Texas right now, because they don't listen.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Still to come, the hotly contested race to lead Harris County. With more money and a back-to-basics anti-crime message, is Republican Alexandra Mealer gaining serious ground? And in our Sunday survey, we are asking viewers who they most trust to improve public safety, incumbent Judge Lena Hidalgo or challenger Alex Mealer. Tell us what you think. Vote on our webpage, fox26houston.com. Just click on poll at the top of the page, or tell 26 using our news app. But up next, he's running on his record of fighting for lower taxes and pushing for boots on the ground in the battle against lawlessness. My conversation with Harris County Precinct 4 Commissioner Jack Cagle is up after the break. Welcome back. Here in Harris County, there is currently a pitched battle to represent more than 1 million residents in Precinct 4, a jurisdiction dramatically redrawn a year ago by Judge Lena Hidalgo and her allies to favor a Democratic challenger over incumbent Republican Jack Cagle. Undaunted, Cagle is fighting back, most recently by denying the progressive majority the quorum needed to push through a $250 million tax increase. This week we spoke one-on-one as he made the case for less government, not more. Commissioner, you've been accused during this budget stalemate of not going to work. I'd like you to respond to that.
By walking through those doors, I consent to a $250 million tax burden that will be added to their lives. If I am to work for them, to represent them in that one component, the way to represent them and to work for them is to not walk through the doors to put a tax burden on their backs. And it's not just a tax burden that hits once. Every year it resets the base. So that's That's a gift that keeps on taking. Families are having to sit around a table and figure out how are we going to make our budgets work with all of these added costs and increases. And yet their appraisals on their properties have gone through the roof. You have to pay more money, and it's going to be transferred from your pocket into your local government's pocket. And as you have been covering, we've now been in this fight over $250 million new dollars, and whether or not that should stay in the pockets of those who are struggling coming out of the pandemic with these costs, because maybe they know best how to spend that $250 million, or whether the government, which has the power to take it from them, takes that $250 million, and then we decide where that goes. And that's a pretty hefty, almost arrogant position.
Commissioner Cagle, your opponent Leslie Briones says the county needs more money, that we need to start spending more money because the needs are greater. If I understand right, you believe the county has enough money to do the job. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a fair assessment, although the language gets to be confusing. You keep hearing the opposition talk about cuts, cuts, cuts. And the cuts are on a proposed spending spree. And if we don't give them the added money, then they are going to choose to make these cuts. And instead of cutting them in the fluff, this 39% that we've grown county government, these 4 new departments that we've added in, these high dollar salaries for these new positions that we have, instead of cutting there, they are going to make the decision to cut it out of basic services.
Polling shows that public safety is far and away the biggest issue on the minds of voters. You have proposed more boots on the ground as the most effective, immediate path to bringing the crime wave under control. Talk about that.
So public safety is, I think, number one. And when I talk to the people that are in the precinct, they tell me that crime is a problem. I had one lady one time who put it in a way that just really resonated with my heart. She said, all I want to do is to be able to put on my jewelry and go to a restaurant and feel safe. And you'll hear Judge Hidalgo all the time saying that she's going to be smart on crime and not tough on crime, and ignore what our local law enforcement says they need as tools to deal with our crime pandemic. Do you want more boots on the ground with better paid cops? Those are the things that I advocate for.
When we come back, the Democratic challenger who says it's time for Cagle to step aside and let a new brand of leader guide Precinct 4 into the future. I'm one-on-one with candidate Leslie Briones next, so don't go away. Welcome back. In the race to represent Harris County Precinct 4, Democratic challenger Leslie Briones tells us she's backing the $250 million tax hike Cagle opposes, calling the added revenue necessary to meet our community's growing needs. A former judge and proud mother, Briones explained what kind of leadership she intends to offer if voters give her a chance. Precinct 4, you've gotten to know this community you hope to serve. What are the biggest needs out there?
Number one, we have to address violent crime. Public safety is the number one issue for every voter we have talked to, and we've knocked on over 100,000 doors, made tens of thousands of calls, because it's really important to me to listen to the concerns of our constituents. So that's number one. Two, addressing inflation and still rebounding from the pandemic, helping small businesses, making sure that life becomes more affordable for all our families. And flooding, especially because Precinct 4 has a lot of West Harris County, and we had, the 5th year anniversary of Harvey recently, and there's still so much to be done with regard to the bond projects and otherwise. And so that's still top of mind. I mean, all of us have PTSD with regard to Harvey and all the storms we've had.
You have said before that you believe we need more resources to get the job done. Can you talk about that?
For example, the Democrats' proposed budget would increase law enforcement funding by $97 million, which to me, that's the number one priority. We need to get a handle on violent crime in our community, for example. And we need to make sure that the hospital district, which is the most underfunded indigent healthcare system in the state has the ample funding. And so to me, it's, I grew up check to check. And there's always going to be a give and take. There's always going to be compromises. And we always need to put the taxpayer and be good fiduciaries of the taxpayers' resources. But at the end of the day, we need to move forward. What I commit to the voters always, all day, every day, is I'll come to the table. I will fight, I will negotiate, I will work in good faith to find solutions, because at the end of the day, we just want a government that works.
We hear this chorus of calls for more boots on the ground. Is that the best answer?
We have 400 approved, funded positions at the sheriff's office already that we cannot fill because we are not paying competitive compensation in comparison to surrounding counties and other urban areas. We need to fill those 400 spots before we consider adding. I want to leverage our law enforcement officers for the violent crime that we need to get a hold of, and individuals who might have addiction or homelessness related issues. I would like to further expand the holistic assistance response team. So I don't see it as a boots on the ground. To me, that's oversimplistic. It is a multifaceted approach to make sure that we are using proven resources and technologies and approaches that will actually deliver the results. But first order of business, we need to fill those open spots, and we need to make sure we are paying the men and women who are sacrificing their lives what they deserve. And as a teacher, as a lawyer, as a former judge, I will use all of this experience and couple that with my desire and commitment to find actual solutions and not go to this gamesmanship, which we're all so tired of.
When we come back, you've heard both candidates make their case. Now it's time for the Watch Your Point crew to pile in and make a collective call. Clear-eyed analysis of this race crucial to our community is coming your way after the break. Welcome back. After hearing from both incumbent and challenger in the critical race to lead Harris County Precinct 4, it's high time to hear from the Watch Your Point crew. Panel, flipping this seat is essential to the Democrats' ultimate goal of a supermajority on Commissioner's Court, power which would allow budgeting and taxation decisions without any interference from fiscally conservative Republicans. Tamara Bell, you know Precinct 4, you know the folks out there. What's this race looking like to you?
This race is looking like, Jack, you're going to be all right. Let me tell you why. Because number one, when you talk about raising property taxes, and you have so many communities who are so concerned about being taxed out of their property, let me tell you, it may be a lock on the rate for a senior, but there is no lock on appraisals. And the appraisals went so high this last time that you didn't even need a tax rate. They already got extra money. So don't you believe that? And if you really are against gentrification, you really won't be voting for Lena or Adrian or Leslie Briones, because increased taxes are gasoline for gentrification. So you need to stay away from that. Number two, yes, people want to see more boots on the ground. People don't like waiting an hour, 30 minutes or whatever for an officer to show up. And they don't need any more money because they got more money doing ARPA and COVID than they ever seen in the history of the county, and can't tell you where the hell that money is. And for them to say Harris County Hospital District doesn't have enough funding, that's where most of the money went. So where the hell is the money? Show me the money. Oh, I know where it is. All them fake ass new positions and new departments that you created so you can take care of your buddies. That's why your 3 top aides are indicted. Give me a damn break. Look, y'all, vote right. Damn the parties. Vote what's right.
All right, Charles Blaine. They pulled kind of a Freaky Friday during redistricting here, switching Ramsey and Cagle's precincts and leaning it to where they feel like they can get a Democrat elected in Precinct 4. How do you see this thing going?
Well, first of all, I'm upset I have to go after tomorrow after that. But I think, listen, I do think Cagle's safe on this. And that's despite them using everything in their toolbox to try to set Leslie Briones up for this office. I mean, going back to when she was first appointed as judge, it was a very shady situation. They didn't even say who the appointments were going to be before they decided who they were going to appoint to replace Bill McLeod. When she was on the bench, after she had announced she was going to run, they didn't immediately replace her. They let her sit there. They redistricted him into a district that would be more favorable for her. So everything along the step of the way, they tried to set it up perfectly for her, but it's going to fail in the end because what we just heard, everything that she just talked about, all I could hear in my head was just a cash register going off because all she wants to do is spend more and more money. And she didn't say what she was going to stand for. She said that what she was going to push for, which was siding with everything that the majority is already doing, but she didn't say where she was going to stand up. And that's why I appreciate Cagle, because you know what? He did stand up in this instance. And they want to say he didn't go to work. Well, sometimes not going to work is going to work because that's protecting us from a tax increase. She talked about affordability. He's the one preserving affordability. She's talking about spending more money, making this county less affordable. So I do think that he's safe. And one thing that I give him so much credit for is that he will explain his positions to anyone who agrees or disagrees with him. He does not mind explaining his values and why he's voting one way or the other. And I think people appreciate that in an elected official.
Sue, Briones has, I guess, a problem with voters in terms of they don't know who she is. Has she done a good enough job to get her face out there, to run TV, to get something other than just a D by her name in the eyes of voters?
You know, it's really hard to run against an incumbent, and even the meanness of the court in switching those at the last moment. Commissioner Cagle is still a commissioner, and he's still an incumbent. So it's very, very difficult to take down an incumbent commissioner. I will tell you, I listened to Briones. Where she lost me was in the primary, where she chose to attack her opponent, who was Asian, gay, by sending out an ad that distorted his face and darkened his skin. And, I hate when Republicans do that. I hate it even more when Democrats use those tactics. So I think Cagle wins simply because he's an incumbent and he's been out working it, and his name ID is way higher.
Gary, everybody's done your work for you. So I'm going to go to Bill. 30 seconds, Bill.
Well, I just want to go back to the tomorrow said. The county the last 2 years got $1.4 billion in aid from the federal and state government. They have plenty of money to do everything they want to do down there without adding another $250 million of property taxes. I think it's incredibly ironic that she says people are worried about inflation, but I want to add another $250 million of property taxes. Who do you think that money comes from? It doesn't fall out of the sky. Taxpayers pay it.
All right, Gary, I'm coming back to you later. Still ahead. We are less than 24 hours away from fresh polling in the race for Harris County Judge, and many believe it will show there's a new leader. We will work through the changing dynamics, so please stay with us.
What I take away is this is absolute lawlessness. And how do you have that in a county that's roughly 30% the GDP of Texas? The point is there's not one aspect of the criminal justice system that has the amount of resources they need to protect the public.
Republican for Harris County Judge Alex Mueller hammering away at incumbent Lina Hidalgo on the crucial issue of crime control, a crisis that's far and away the #1 concern of voters. Mueller's statement came at the nonpartisan Houston Super Neighborhood Alliance Forum, which Hidalgo chose not to attend, appearing instead before the Houston Black Americans Democrats, where she got this question.
So we are days away from early voting, and what's wrong? Why haven't you been anywhere? Because it's like, to me, you don't care. And we're out pushing your name, but you're not everywhere where you need to be.
Moments later, Judge Hidalgo offered this response.
At the same time, what do you do with $5 million? I mean, we don't have as many signs as she does, okay? We don't have as many ads as she does. We don't have as many mailers as she does. We don't have as many radio ads as she does. We always knew we were going to get outspent.
Panel, I ask, what do you make of the incumbent now arguing that she has always been the underdog in this race? I'm going to throw that straight to you, Gary Pollan. If you want to talk about Precinct 4, go ahead, too.
Well, I think in both races, it's really pretty similar, Greg. There's a fundamental choice in this election. If you are happy with the way these people have run county government the last 4 years, if you're happy about our crime situation, you're happy about runaway taxes, you're happy about runaway spending, then you ought to vote to re-elect Lina Hidalgo, and you ought to vote to elect Leslie Briones, because you're going to get it in spades is what you're going to get. But the voters are not there. Lina is making excuses. In fact, that she's an excuse factory. She was the overwhelming favorite in this race. There's no question about it. She has an inability to raise money, and she has a record she's hiding from. So if you had her dismal record of performance like she does, why would you go campaign anywhere except before friendly Democratic audiences that even there they challenge you? And so that's what she did. She didn't show up at the Super Neighborhoods Forum. Why? Because she's afraid to answer questions. On the other hand, Alexandra Mealer goes everywhere. And she's raised a lot of money because she's worked really hard at it. I mean, I give her all the credit in the world. She is one of the hardest working candidates I've seen in recent years in Harris County. And I think the race is changing. I think it has changed. I think all the momentum is with Mealer, and I think Mealer's going to end up taking Lena down. In the Kegel race, I mean, Briones was recruited by Rodney Ellis. Briones worked at the Arnold Foundation, which was the architects of bail reform. The bail failed system that started us on the way where we're doing with criminal justice, which has become a giant joke. And then, of course, she stayed on the bench for 3 or 4 months after she was running, which is illegal, but the commissioners never filled it. So she get paid to run for office. It goes on and on and on. They need to both be defeated.
All right, Sue, we're looking at this situation where 98% of our viewers believe that Alice Mealer in our Sunday survey would do a better job on public safety. Is this what this race comes down to?
It is. You can look at all the polling. You can listen to people. More importantly, they want to feel safe in their city and their county. And the reason why Mealer decided to run was for that simple reason. Look, she's gone out and worked hard, very hard. She's had a plan. She's executed. She's talked to all the groups. She's been everywhere she's supposed to be, and she's listened to everyone. And I really think that Judge Hidalgo thought she was just going to walk in and win this race, and she now has an opponent that's making her go out and campaign. And I think she's just throwing things against the wall, trying to figure out what people are going to listen to. I think it's evident that people have said, we want our county to be safe, and we want our community safe, and we want good government.
All right, Tamara Bell, what does it mean when a county judge candidate gives the Heisman, says, I'm not coming to the Super Neighborhood Alliance Forum?
Tell you, the Super Neighborhood Alliance is a codified City of Houston organization established over 20 years ago by the great Mayor Lee Brown to make sure communities had a voice, a combined voice. We made up of civic clubs, churches, schools, and everything, and it's don't pay one dime. Not one dime. A think tank would pay multiple millions for the brains that work hard to try to make this city and this county a better place. And when you tell us you're coming first, because you said you was coming, then you don't come. Then you ask us for dates. We give you dates. We ask you what day work for you. You said nothing. Then you don't show. That let us know you don't care. You do not care. And that's all we need to know, because we care. And if we care enough to do this for free and your ass getting paid and don't care, deuces to you.
Bill King, last 30 seconds to you.
Well, it sure feels like to me that wind is at the back of Mealer and Jack right now, although I would just caution everyone that these races are way down the ballot. The polls are very hard to do on these races. It is a Democratic leaning county, but the wind is at the back of at least these two candidates, I think. And I just don't know how those two offsetting factors will come to play.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Still to come, the state of Texas sending inspectors to ride herd on Harris County voting operations after a primary debacle and a problematic audit. Should we welcome the oversight? But up next, Joe Biden digging into the Donald Trump toolbox to block a massive wave of Venezuelan immigration bearing down on our border. Welcome back. Is the Biden administration reversing course, facing a mass migration of Venezuelan nationals headed north to the U.S. border? The president this week expanded the Trump-era Title 42 to include refugees from the crisis-torn South American country. That means asylum will not be granted to most Venezuelans seeking entry and empowers Homeland Security to turn away those who arrive here. Panel advocates for international refugees are now accusing President Biden of embracing the Trump playbook. Charles Blaine, what do you think of this?
I mean, it's interesting. Talk about an about face. Tomorrow, I'm not going to steal your shine. What I am going to say is that when Trump was doing this, Biden called this cruelty and exclusion at every term. And he said things, I mean, just that he vilified Trump for doing this, and now he's doing the exact same thing. And then just weeks ago, he vilified Abbott and DeSantis for shipping migrants to two states in the United States. Now he's kicking them out, so I don't know what that makes him.
All right, Gary Polland, is Biden doing this to, arriving in the midterm, tens of thousands of Venezuelans is not a good visual?
Well, I think that's true. And I also think that the Biden administration maybe finally has woken up and realizes that the border is a major league crisis for this country, and we got to do something about it. And they basically ignored it for the entire time of this administration being in office. So, and I also think it's politics. They read the polls, they know that people don't like open borders. So that's what's going on.
All right, Bill King, you look at this mess, and I'm guessing you don't see either the Republicans or Democrats willing to come together for long-term solutions, just situation normal, all messed up.
I don't think it takes a genius to figure that out. I mean, we've had a broken immigration system for, 50 years now, 40 years or something like that. Like, using a pandemic restriction like this to direct control is a bad idea because it's a bad policy. That's not the reason you want to do it. Why don't we sit down and actually come up with a system that says we're going to allow this many people into the country. We're going to go through this kind of vetting process before we allow them in the country. And then we're going to make sure they have some place to go to work. I mean, every country in the world has a rational immigration system except the United States of America, because we have two irrational political parties.
Well, surprise, surprise, tomorrow, Bill King sounds rational.
Listen, everything y'all said is wrong. The reason he doing this is because you got the Chicago mayor and the New York mayor with 200 people saying, Lord, the sky is falling. The sky is falling. They don't give a damn that we get 2,000 to 20,000 a week. But now it's coming to them. And they like, Biden, look, your ass better fix this because I didn't plan on this. I don't have no room for them. That is why he doing it. Because Abbott said, look, they want to come to America. America don't stop at Texas. It goes all the way to California. It goes all the way to New York. It goes all the way to Minnesota. There are a whole other places to come other than Texas. And Abbott said, you need a ride? I got you. That's why he's doing this.
All right, Sue, you have one generally constant message about this is we need to come to the table and pass workable immigration reform. Am I right?
Look, everybody's criticizing Don on Biden. He's not doing anything. He's not doing anything. Then he decides to listen and do something. Now they're criticizing him and on for changing his mind. So, I mean, why would you want to listen to other people? And then when you listen to them and change your mind, you get criticized for it. You ought to be saying, hey, Biden, thanks for listening to us. We're glad that you're finally seeing this the right way. We encourage you to continue to do so.
Gotta leave it there. Up next, who will show and who will not? With early voting set to open tomorrow, we are gauging the relative enthusiasm of the Lone Star State electorate. Turnout. As in almost all elections, what happens November 8th will depend on how many voters feel strongly enough to invest the necessary time and energy to cast a ballot. The challenge for both candidates and political parties, mobilizing more Texans sympathetic to their platform than the opposition can energize in support of theirs. To win in Harris County and statewide, Democrats need healthy African-American turnout while also capturing more than 60% of the Hispanic vote. That's a tall order, made even taller by the recent revelation that only 1 out of 10 Americans believe our democracy is working well. Panel, is that a recipe for voter apathy? I'm going to start with you, Bill King.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting. Both parties represent a very small percentage of the American people, somewhere around 25% each. The prescriptions that the middle wants are not represented by either. And so those of us that are in the middle, we have to go in and decide which is the lesser of two evils. And after a while, it gets a little tedious, all having to go into every election and do that. So I think there is a lot of what difference does it make? I mean, is one side really any worse than the other right now going on? I also think that in this particular race, the Democrats have a problem in that their elite, the sort of white elite Democrats, are pushing policies that are absolutely not supported by the Latino community. And you can see it in issue after issue, from abortion to, their economic policies to law enforcement to the border. And so they are cramming these issues down the throat of Latinos, and Latinos are increasingly saying, screw you, I'm not going to go along with that. I'm going to go over and vote for the Republicans.
All right, Charles Blaine. One of the striking findings of the UT Texas Tribune poll was that the Latino vote in Texas is a dead heat. We know Beto O'Rourke needs at least 60, maybe 65% to even have a shot.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the problem. Abbott, and I think this comes down to a more candidate thing than it does a party thing, because Abbott himself has spent a lot of time since 2014 in the Valley, cultivating that base, showing them that he supports them, showing them that he wants their support. I mean, every single election cycle, even off years, he has spent a lot of time there. And so I don't know. And then now we're seeing that the trend of Hispanic folks looking at the Republican Party as an alternative. And I think the reason more so that they're looking at the party, though, isn't a race thing or anything like that. It's a class thing. I mean, it's the Democrats are catering to the elite. They know that these policies, these ivory tower policies coming out of think tanks, they work for some, but they don't work for most. And the Republican Party is currently proposing policies that address the basic issues that the day-to-day Americans are facing. And so I really think it's a class divide here. And I think the Democrats are catering to that elite, and they're missing a huge mark with that.
Tamara Bell, in terms of the African-American vote, this ain't 2020, is it?
But it's not. And that is something that the Democratic Party needed to look at, and I don't think they have looked at it. And I think a lot of African-American voters feel neglected. And you have the division in the party between the Black and brown community, whether you want to recognize it or not. But there is not a Latino Democrat that can win in Harris County without getting the Black vote. So treating them like crap, like some of the people say is happening at HISD and at HCC once you're elected, that is not a method for success. Okay, and it is pushing people out of the party. And the fact that no white male judges won, that also alienated a lot of the population as well. So the Democratic Party got problems.
Real quickly, Gary, you knocking on wood right now? Hoping for the best?
I'm hoping for the best. Look, I'm really optimistic. I think the Democrats have basically ceded the working class to the Republicans. And so we need to take advantage of that and show that we can go forward with issues that the working class in America is interested in.
All right, we're leaving it there. Up next, thousands of misplaced ballots, broken deadlines, and troubling audit findings. Taken together, does it justify additional state scrutiny of Harris County's midterm election? Welcome back. Plenty of mostly Democratic outrage this week after the Texas Secretary of State announced special inspectors would be dispatched to the Bayou City to oversee the counting of Harris County midterm ballots. Mayor Sylvester Turner, Judge Lena Hidalgo, and Harris County Attorney Christian Menefee responded by asking the U.S. Department of Justice to send monitors to oversee the state inspectors. Panel, this latest ruckus comes in the wake of the disastrous March 1st primary, during which more than 10,000 ballots were misplaced, and Harris County failed to meet the state's deadline for counting all the votes. Sue Lovell, does this worry you?
Not worry me. It really makes me angry, because we didn't have this problem before Judge Hidalgo came in and stripped away the election duties from two African-American women, Democrats, who were elected to do the elections, stripped them away from their duties, and then put this elections administrator in. And that's when all the problems started. So if she hadn't done that, I think we'd have elections that were going very well. These two very capable women were running the elections and everything was okay. So no, I'm not surprised we're going to have people coming in and watching. But again, if we'd have left it with the two women who were elected, and look, I'm a Democrat. I was proud to elect two African-American women to county office and with the duties. I thought it was insulting. She stripped them of their duties, put somebody in. It's been a mess ever since.
Okay, Gary Paul and I talk to you twice a week for lots of weeks. So I know you keep a close eye on this topic.
Yeah, there should be inspectors. There's not a big deal about it. What's really going on here is to turn it into a political tool. The Rodney and the mayor and Christian Menifee and whoever hangers on there are trying to gin up votes from the African American community by trying to imply that the fact there'll be inspectors is designed to take away your vote. It's about as credible as Stacey Abrams claimed to Georgia they were suppressing the black vote and you had a record turnout. So it's not true. If they want to invite the Justice Department and there's a legal basis for them to watch the inspectors, I have no problem with that. We can invite the UN to come in to watch the federal inspectors. It goes on and on and on. But here's the problem, and Sue nailed it. Lena Hidalgo, when she gets in, decides to go forward with a plan. It's not just the elections. It's every elected official's power. They're trying to take it away and give it to appointed officials so they control them directly and they don't have to answer to the people. And that is wrong. And that's what they've done. And that's why 460 million in new bureaucracies were created on Lena Hidalgo's watch. Think about that. Cagle fought them, Ramsey fought them, but Lena and her wing people came forward and passed it. That's the problem. You want to know where the hospital district money is, Greg? There it is. Where's the money for 1,000 new policemen? There it is. It's there with no new taxes.
All right, Charles, I'm going to give you 20 seconds.
Yeah, you know, look, reading the letter, there's a lot of outrage, and you know, I would agree that it was suppressing or chilling the vote if they didn't strip elections away from 2 elected officials during a primary when people were at the polling locations. The workers who would otherwise comment on this couldn't show up to commissioner's court. They didn't misplace 10,000 ballots. If they didn't, you know, deliver results late into the night. If all these issues did not happen, then yes, I would agree that they were chilling the vote. But these issues did happen, and we do need oversight. And the fact that they're saying that this oversight is what's going to chill the vote. The average person has no idea that there's going to be oversight. It's going to be at central count anyway, so no one's going to care.
Okay, got to leave it there. Don't take me to the woodshed tomorrow. Still to come, a sobering prediction on the Texas governor's race and what we hope is an enticing preview of tonight's edition of Texas The Issue Is.
I think we're looking at another Greg Abbott victory and Beto O'Rourke defeat, with the only real question that remains is, does he lose by 5 or 6 points or 10 or 12 points?
Rice political analyst Mark Jones making a highly educated prediction on the upcoming edition of Texas The Issue Is, airing tonight at 9:45 here on Fox 26. In the meantime, panel, it's my sad obligation to report the passing of a member of our Watch Your Point family. From this show's very beginning, longtime Houstonian Warren Fawcett has been among our most ferocious backers and loyal viewers, adding his take to our digital public square with both consistency and passion. I am absolutely certain he would tell us the most meaningful way to honor him is for our crew members to continue calling it like they see it, with intelligence, with fervor, with mutual respect, and most of all, with the greater good of Texas and our nation as the driving principle. Rest easy, Warren. We know you are watching. Thanks for joining us. The conversation continues on a national level next with Fox News Sunday, and we will continue talking right here on Watch Your Point Overtime, streaming live on fox26houston.com and our Facebook page. From all of us here, have a safe and healthy week.